So in this lesson, we're going to cover Euclidean Mode, which is really, really cool. It's a brand new feature for the Digitakt II. I think it's also been released on the Written 2 and some other machines. I'm sure we're going to get updates as well. So it's really fun to play with, and what I'm going to do is just show you how to use it. It's fairly straightforward. Looks quite complex at first, but then once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to mess around with. And it can generate some interesting patterns that you wouldn't normally come up with a lot of ease. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to access it. What we're going to do is hold function and on any of the tracks and then press the AMP page, which will bring you into Euclidean mode. If you come out of that, or if we just put on the record function and put in some trigs, you'll notice that as soon as we switch to Euclidean mode, it disables those trigs and it turns the record button blue. In the manual it says blue, but that looks purple to me, but I am colorblind. Right, so let's just come out of that again. Let's just clear those trigs and let's go into Euclidean mode. So the way this works is you can't put trigs on the sequencer anymore. You basically add trigs by adding trigs with these pulse generators. So we've got two pulse generators, and what they do is they create pulses which trigger the sound. If we go to one pulse, you'll notice that it just adds one trig. And if we want, we can move that pulse around the sequencer if we wish, like this, using this first one. If we want to add a second pulse, we can go to pulse 2. So let's just add one with that one. And again, we can move that around the sequencer if we want. So this gets really interesting when you start to combine pulses and you use high numbers. So let's say if we go for 3, you can see it's put a pulse on 1, 7, and 12. Let's add a second pulse. So you can see it's added the second pulse on 5, 9, and 13. That's only added 3 pulses. That's because some of the pulses overlap with each other. So if we go back to 4, and then if we just shift that maybe, let's see if we can get a full 7. Let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, let's see if we can get the full 7 to show up just by rotating. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we go back again and put them over the top of each other, I can use this setup to show you what this does here. So this is called the Boolean Operator, and what it does is just does some mathematical stuff, basically some ways that we can add or subtract the trigs that are there. So as you can see, we've got 6 available, but we have got 7 trigs. Some of them overlap each other. If you go on this, it means that all trigs from both generators will play, and that's normally how I normally use it. But what you can do is you can change it to this one. Now what that means is if you go right, it means any trigs that are placed on the same trigger or the same trig, which is the first one, that's where both of them overlap, it will be removed. So you can see this one is removed. If we go back, it's added again. If we go to the next one, it means only the one where they overlap will be added to the sequencer. Any ones where they're not overlapping, so where the trigs don't overlap on top of each other, they will be removed. In this case, we're just left with a 1. And then the next one, which can be a little bit confusing, is the subtract. So this is trigs from generator 1. They are placed on the track. So basically the trigs are placed on the track unless generator 2 adds a trig on the same step as generator 1. So that leaves us with 7 and 12. So let's go back and let's just take a look at the rotation again. So yeah, we can rotate these around to come up with different sequences. The other thing that you can do as well is you can actually quite easily just rotate both of them. So if you use this one, it rotates 1 and 2 at the same time instead of having to go like this. Or maybe you want to kind of rotate them like that, then you want to rotate all of them at the same time around the sequencer. So it's just like using function left and right when you're in grid recording mode, but obviously you've got a little bit more control over 2 different pulses, or you can control both of them at the same time. Also, we've got the length option. That's not available at the moment. So what we need to do is come out of this, hold function, press page, and that will take us into the sequencer page setup. Then hold function again and press yes, and that will allow us to do a sequence per track. Let me just put this back on the 16. Now what we can do is we can go in to the Euclidean mode again, and you can see it gives us the length option. Length is just basically sequencer length, so we can shorten this if we want, but you'll notice that it tries to kind of like squeeze all of the trigs into a shorter length. So It's basically a way that we can do polymeters and polyrhythms as we would do with different sequencer lengths. But we can do it in Euclidean mode. It's also worth noting that you can put Euclidean generator on all of the tracks, and once you start to do that and play around with them individually, you can come up with some really nice like combinations where they all interact with each other, and we'll do a little bit of that in a second. So let's just put that back to 16. And then the other thing that I just want to explain as well is if we come out of Euclidean mode, you'll see that the trigs are disappeared. They're not on the sequencer anymore. So if we previously had some trigs, just a 4/4 pattern, then we put the Euclidean mode on, you can see it changes. Then if we go back again, you can see that we go back to the 4/4 pattern. If you're in Euclidean mode and you want to basically place this on the sequencer, hold function and bring that back, and you can see it's printed the sequence onto the sequencer, which is quite handy because maybe you want to disable Euclidean mode and then you can come back into the grid mode and start working in here as you would normally. So once you're in grid mode, obviously that allows us to now be able to place some extra trigs on that track, which we couldn't do before. So you can use Euclidean mode as a constant generator, or you can use it as a starting point, which can then print to the grid recording mode and then work from there. Also worth noting as well, once you are in Euclidean mode, you can't add the trigs, you can't add any trigless trigs, but one thing you can do while you're in Euclidean mode is add some automation. So you can add stuff to the trigs like this. So we can add trigs there. We can clear them. Let's go back in to Euclidean mode. That has actually cleared everything that we had going on. So you can't add trigless trigs. That's the only downfall. So what you can do, like I said before, is go into Euclidean mode, work that out. Then you can come out of it by using function and turn it off. It'll put it onto the grid. And then you can go in and do your usual trigless trigs and all that kind of stuff, adding extra trigs. So what I want to do next is kind of just experiment with this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use one pulse for the kick, which gives us like an electro kind of kick pattern. And then what I'm going to do next is go into the snare and put Euclidean mode on. So you could actually write it this way. So you can see if I go 2, that's like 2 snare hits on the sequence. I could rotate that like this. And this is a little bit slow for a kind of electro beat. So let me go into the tempo and just give this a boost. So kick's a little bit weird. Let's... That might sound quite cool if we distort it a little bit. That'll do. I don't want to get too in the weeds with the sound design, but what I'll do is just... So, because I'm using stock sounds as well, it's not my favourite sounds for this style. But then if I go into the sequencer again, so let's take a look at the snare drum. Maybe we could add some extra stuff in there. Maybe want to rotate that. Let's just go for that for now. And let's add some kind of like more funkier stuff in there. So we'll go to the hats. And let's just randomize like the patterns like this. What we could do as well is we could change the pattern length. Let's just bring these back a little bit. So that's constantly rotating now, but what I need to do is go into the pattern length and change the reset. Let's just go for 64. Because what it's doing is it's getting to the end of 16 hit trigs and then it's resetting that. But now we'll get this longer evolving kind of sequence there. Let's go into the tom now. Let's go quite high and then use this. And let's maybe try rotating it a bit. It just works great if you just kind of experiment like that. Let's give this a bit more edge. And let's maybe experiment with adding a little bit of automation as well. You can go into grid recording mode. But one thing it won't do is add some trigless trigs in it. It'll just lock what you've got on each trig like this. So you can see that it hasn't worked for those for some reason. So what I'm going to do is just put them in automatically like this. Sorry, manually. Take out some of the low frequencies. That's quite cool, that. Right, let's go back into the effects. Add a bit of delay there. Let's try and experiment with this as well. I always press setup by accident, but it's in there. Let's see what we've got on this track. Little clap. So yeah, I've basically shortened the length. So we're doing a little bit of kind of like polymeter stuff here. So as I like bring the length down, it's kind of rotating around like this. You can see it stops on 11, goes back. We are going to cover this in more detail later, this technique, but we're integrating it with the Euclidean sequencer as well. We could mess with that and just rotate them round like that. Or you could use the mathematics again. Again, the way I do it is I don't think about it too much what I'm doing. I just twist until it sounds cool. Let's turn these down a bit. It's a really good little tool for if you're getting stuck with creating patterns. Let's add some of this in. A little bit harsh, so I'm just going to bring this down a bit. That's quite cool. Let's just change some of these tracks. Just bring the volume up a little bit. Let's see what else we've got. Obviously, it's getting quite busy now. But I just want to see what other stuff we've got going on the tracks. So let's see what we've got. Let's use that one. Again, we'll just do one last one now. So Euclidean mode again. Quite cool. See if we can do a bit of grid recording with this. Just take the bit reduction off. Don't really like that. Like I said before, once we've got something like that, we can go into the different Euclidean modes, hold function, switch that off, function, switch it off, function, switch it off, and so on for all of the tracks that we've messed around with. And then we should be left with sequences that we can actually go into now, and we'll get a little bit more better action with the trigless trigs, because I couldn't do trigless trigs before, but now if I want to record that in now, it's going to sound a lot better like this. Let's just focus on that one. So like this one now, I can record the trigless trigs in. quite cool. I like the snare, maybe take that one out. So we can just start to edit it a bit more now. So that's on this sound. This one, I'm just going to take away the low frequencies. Also, maybe the top frequencies a little bit as well. Maybe we add some random panning in there. See what else we got. Go to the reverb. Add more decay. Let's look at the delay as well. Make that ping pong. Get a bit carried away, yeah, but it's fun, you know. Let's take it to its. Let's just push it a little bit. See where we get to. Maybe we'll mess with this filter as well. That's cool. Put some snare fills in, so I'm just going to go to the Trig page. Just copy them over. Needs a better kick, but it's quite cool, it's quite fun. So you can see how easy that was for me to come up with something quite interesting. That is a sequence. That, I mean, the snare actually and the hat, maybe. I'd have come up with something like that probably. Maybe I would have tried doing a little bit of polymeter stuff on the hat, but this kind of stuff, the way that that's working for me, it's just like so easy to come up with that. I mean, my version of doing Euclidean actually is, it's not really Euclidean, but my previous attempts to doing that kind of stuff, to coming up with some randomized kind of like little sequences, wasn't very mathematical, but what I would do is just chuck stuff in like that. And it makes it seem like it's really easy to come up with music, and to be honest, on Electron it is. And then I could do like a polyrhythm with that if I wanted to. So a polymeter, sorry. So if so that's constantly changing and evolving now. Let's save that, because that was pretty cool.